Hi, this is Tanner, Rissa, and Willa. For the past 8 months, we've been accomplishing a lifelong dream of ours to live internationally and make travel a consistent part of our life. Germany is our current home and one that we've loved exploring. Recently, and unfortunately, a close family member of ours passed away, taking us back to America for a couple weeks. Although we've only been living abroad for 8 months, we are surprised to find that we experienced a sort of readjustment to the way things are back in America. In this video, we explain some of our reverse culture shocks. Hello! We're so happy to be here filming this video. We are in Germany, finally. It's been a long time coming.
For sure. Today is a very relaxing day. It's a day off of work, and we've just really taken advantage of going outside, and the sun's starting to peak. It's early afternoon and this is like some of the first sunshine of the day, so definitely been more of a moody winter day here in Germany, but we could not be more excited. We're filming this, like Marissa said, from our house in Germany, and this comes after a week or so being home from visiting family in Utah.
Our trip to Utah was so unexpected. You have to watch those videos to see what we went through. We're going to be talking about some of the reverse culture shocks that we had, which is fun for us because honestly, I didn't think it was going to be very shocking to be back in Utah. And it's not like it was like super shocking, but there definitely were a few things that we were like, oh, like that's kind of weird now.
Or maybe not weird, but just like you forget about it not being in there every day, and you notice the difference between here and there. So let's get into it. So the first one is driving. For sure, driving on an Autobahn compared to driving on the interstate or the freeways in the States, almost night and day difference. And I'm very comfortable on the Autobahn now. If you saw our first video, it was definitely the first little bit of us driving on the Autobahn, probably just being more cautious and timid the first few times getting on the Autobahn, but now we're very comfortable. We love the system and how everyone, for the most part, obeys all of those rules to just get out of the left lane and let the fast people go by. But in the States, we had people passing all over the place. Semis passing on the left, people passing on the right. You didn't feel so safe. Not that that was something that was new to us, but something that we just forget not being on those roads as often. I was like, my gosh, like why are they doing that? And then people like park in the left lane. That was probably the most annoying part of all of it, is you would have a semi in the right lane, and then you'd have 6 to 8 cars in the left lane only going like 2 miles an hour faster than the semi, and people aren't even passing. They would just sit there, and so then people would pass on the right. Anyway, it's fine. Obviously, I've survived my whole life, both of our lives driving there, but still, it was just like, I want my Autobahn back.
It was really funny because that was one of the first things that Tanner said. Once we got in the car, we got in the freeway, and Tanner was like, oh my gosh, I hate the way that people drive here. Like, I remember you saying that, and your mom's like, I'm not a bad driver, but it's like, no, not the driving. It's just like everyone in Utah tends to,
But it's not just Utah, right?
Yeah.
You could probably name a state that's worse, right? But anyway, it was just, that was the first thing that I realized once we got on the road. I was like, why are people sitting in the left lane? Anyway, that was the first one. So, long story short, we really enjoyed the Autobahn. The second thing that we noticed, and honestly for me it was the first thing once getting in the flight, is literally we like got in the car and I was like, oh my gosh, I can see so far. So in the area that we live in, it's really quite hilly, and so it was, I didn't think that it would be this way, but really getting in Utah, I was like, this is weird to see so far out. And of course we have the mountains there, so that's part of the view, but you can just see everything in the valley for miles and miles. Yeah, it's definitely noticeable, especially in contrast against the mountains that just spike right out of the ground, and then it's just flat, like near the Salt Lake. And even to be quite honest, my family lives about an hour to hour and a half north of the Great Salt Lake and the Salt Lake International Airport. And if you probably got like a spotting scope out, you could probably see like my parents' house. I mean, obviously that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it seems like it is just so flat. So huge difference. And there's not like forests there, even any forests, at least in the valley areas for the most part. And so you can just see so much.
And we know that's not as much like a culture shock per se, but it was still just like a major shock for us that it's definitely worth mentioning. One big culture shock that I particularly noticed, and honestly kind of missed was being able to hug a stranger for the first time of meeting them. It's not like we had a lot of experiences where we were around strangers in Utah, especially because of all our sickness that came. But before we got sick, we were at the funeral. I mean, that's why we flew to Utah, and our purpose was for being there. And there were people that we didn't know, but it's kind of more of an American thing to just be like, hi, how are you? Like, I'll give you a hug, and this is just like my way of saying hi, nice to meet you. Wouldn't you say?
I mean, an American thing, especially for Marissa, like, I'm totally fine to not give hugs to people, but like at the same time, I think I'm more accustomed to doing that, especially if it's someone that, you know, maybe you've heard something about, or typically like at the end of meeting that person. First, it's a handshake or like just a hi, and then at the very end, you say goodbye, and obviously if both people are comfortable, you give a hug. Whereas here, there's been several people who we've met where Marissa just leaves and she's like, I just feel awkward not giving them a hug, right? And it's nothing bad on the other person or whatever, it's just comfort levels. And so, but I think that is a big culture shock. And probably the ultimate demise of why we got COVID is because we were hugging people. Obviously, hindsight 2020, obviously there are tons of things, and not going in the first place would have been the best one to avoid it. But, that was the cards that we were dealt at the time. But still, an interesting culture shock indeed.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you pointed out, like, sometimes I do give hugs to people at like first time meeting them of like, hi, how are you? My name's Marissa. But typically that's not really the case. It's almost always like after we're done meeting that person. And we know this just depends on the personality. There's going to be other Germans where we've been able to give hugs with after meeting. Like Katie's a perfect example. We connected with her and gave her a hug, and we just love her, and it was totally normal and fine. But there has been other situations where where even once actually I asked, like, can I give you a hug? Because I didn't want to set boundaries and I want to respect, and I'm totally aware of the cultural differences. And the person was like, we'll probably get there, but like not yet. And I was so happy that I asked, but it was just like, oh, like there's a difference. And I'm definitely felt more inclined to just give hugs. And so again, personal preferences.
One that just came to my mind is carpet. Our entire house is either like hardwood floor or tile. And so you just expect your feet kind of are sore the first couple days and then you get used to it. But we got back to Utah, and the first couple steps that I took inside with my socks, just like my socks are just like my feet, I was like, oh, that's nice. Yeah. So I know that there are homes in Germany that I'm sure have carpet, but maybe because of the higher humidity or just because culturally, and that's just how historically things have been, we don't see a lot of that. Just lots of throw rugs, right?
Actually, that you've said that. Do you guys have carpet in your house?
Yeah.
Do you not? Do you know why carpet is not a thing? Has it ever been?
Yeah, like I said, I think that a lot of it has to do with just, ease of cleaning, ease of installation. You don't have to repair and replace it as much. Like, I totally get that. Like, I'm a huge proponent of that. Like, in our house, we put in a hardwood floor, vinyl planking, just because it is a lot easier to maintain, clean, and, carpet can get pretty grody pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for long term, it completely makes sense to do without carpet.
Well, let us know. Do you have carpet in your house? Another one that was very noticeable is how much trash there really is, because there's not a very good recycling system in Utah, at least.
Oh, yes.
We know that there are tons of other states, like especially Oregon and Washington, where we've lived or visited before, and they have a fairly good recycling program. They have higher incentives, and it's a denser population, and so I think that they have not more of a need, because everywhere has the need for it, but like they just have those programs in place. We got to Utah, it's like they don't even have like a cardboard or plastic recycling available in the town where we both grew up in. And so it's been hard because it's came and went, and it's to the point now where it's like, you really have to put an extra effort. It's not like you have all of these recycling trucks that come by to pick them up like you have here. You have your Geldsack, and then you have the cardboard, and you have drop-off locations that you can do that, and we love that. So going back there, we just realized how quickly the garbage bin got filled up.
Honestly, it was really sad to see and disheartening to be like, oh my gosh, like all of this could be recycled, but it's not. Programs need to be improved greatly, especially in the town where we're both from. It's a smaller town. Of course, when you get to bigger cities within the states, they're gonna have better programs, but it's just nothing like the level here. Like you go into the supermarket here and you can recycle the glasses and the bottles, the water bottles and things that you purchased, and there's an incentive for it. It's super accessible. Germany just does it right in that way.
Yeah. And there, like I said, there are a lot of places in the States, and including in Utah, like Salt Lake, for example, it has, for the most part, it has recycling programs that are available much more than where we live, but it's still something that we wish was implemented more. So
even that one thing that comes to mind is like glass per se. I don't know in Salt Lake particularly, but like you don't find a recycling for glass in small towns. You have to like go to like a big one, and even then it's like one place where you have to drive to like drop it off. Even when we lived in Ogden, like a bigger city, like they don't have those accessible at your house. You have to drive to places, and it's like one area within the city. So it's really inconvenient and hard to, not hard, but just inconvenient.
Yeah, which ultimately leads to lower participation, right, from people. And so then programs don't get funded because it doesn't happen. So anyway.
Something that hasn't occurred to us until we had Willa, an infant, on our lap on the airplanes, is that in Europe, they, at least the airlines that we've been flying with, they require a seatbelt to be attached to the adult seatbelt, you know, that will clip around her. So it's basically like a little infant seatbelt. But in the States, everywhere that we've flown on and every airline, we have not had to have that. So kind of an interesting difference between European airlines and American airlines. Honestly, the seatbelt is a little bit harder to use because, I mean, Willa's a toddler. She wants to see out the window and go to mommy's lap and then go to daddy's and
say
stand
hi to the
up.
neighbors.
Yeah. Like it's a little bit harder, and I think with us typically not being used to that, we were like, oh, like it's a little bit of a hassle, but you know, not a huge inconvenience, just different.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure the next time we go back to the States, there will be more that we realize, especially we're really hoping that, you know, COVID has mellowed down a ton. The next time that we go back, we get to explore, get to go outside, see more people, friends and family. Like we said in our last video, we only got to see Marissa's family for the most part. And so I'm sure there will be more of those culture shocks that come back. But overall, we have absolutely loved being back in Germany. And that's not to say that we don't miss our family and friends back at home, but still, it's something that we come home and we feel like we're home. Right? So
many times today, literally, we were at the park and we we're just like, oh, we love being in Germany. Like, we very luckily caught the end of fall time and the leaves are still falling and it's just really beautiful here. I'm kind of a little sad we missed out on more of the fall time here in Germany because what we're seeing is breathtaking and it just feels right.
Absolutely. Thanks again for being here, guys. We love having you here. And we really appreciate all of the comments and all of the suggestions on how we can improve our life here. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next video.